Today, we're talking the top buys and sells for fantasy football ahead of week 3. And when you're making your deals this week, be sure to use our trade calculator at yardsperfantasy.com. It's fully customizable, it's free to use, and you'll never lose a trade again. Find it now at yardsperfantasy.com/trade-calculator. Let's kick things off today with the top trade targets for week 3, beginning with Panthers rookie wide receiver Tetairoa McMillan. Tetairoa McMillan might feel kind of like a buy high after a 6-catch, 100-yard performance, but I expect his value is only going to continue to go up from here. But seriously, 100 yards in just his second NFL game? Not too bad. Not too bad. But he's the clear number 1 target in the passing game in Carolina. Like, it's not even close. He's had target shares of 26% and 18% over the first 2 weeks. He ran 91% of the routes in week 2. The Panthers are a bad team once again, so they're always going to be chasing points and trying to come back in games, which means lots of pass attempts and garbage time fantasy points. This is a guy I talked about all summer as a draft target, and I mentioned him as one of the bonus buys in last week's video. I've liked him all along. We're just seeing the beginning of his potential. Fantasy managers are afraid of Bryce Young. They're afraid of the Panthers offense. I get it, but garbage time Tet is going to hit so good all season. I am buying. I'm also buying Brian Thomas Jr. It's been a weird 2 weeks for Brian Thomas Jr. Week 1, he caught just 1 ball, but he scored a rushing touchdown. In week 2, he caught just 4 passes for 49 yards. Still, the opportunities in role have been there. He had a very healthy 24% target share in week 1. He followed that up with a 29% share in week 2. It's just the connection hasn't been all the way there yet with him and Trevor Lawrence. But we saw last year how dangerous Brian Thomas Jr. is when he gets going. He had 6 top 12 performances with a few others inside the top 20. He finished as wide receiver 11 in fantasy points per game. The Jaguars offense is still working on some kinks, but it's clearly already a much better unit this year under Liam Cohen than it's been in past seasons. So I'm not waiting for Brian Thomas Jr. in that offense to get going before I acquire him. I am buying now. Another wide receiver I'm trying to make a trade for is Chris Olave. The box score says Chris Olave has been, fine to begin the season. He scored 12.4 and 11.4 PPR points in his wide receiver 35 after 2 weeks. But he's looking like a high volume player that we can count on for consistent production week to week, with the upside for spike weeks when the touchdowns come. He had 13 targets in week 1. He followed that up with another 10 targets in week 2. That's target shares of 28% and 29% to begin the season. He also ran 100% of the routes in week 2. He was top 12 in air yards, and he accounted for 49% of the team's total air yards. This is an elite role for Chris Olave, and we know the volume is going to continue. I mean, for one, there's not a lot of target competition in that offense. It's going to be Olave, Jawan Johnson, and a little bit of Rashid Shaheed. Secondly, the Saints are not a good team. They're going to be playing from behind more often than not. So they'll be throwing a ton in the second half of games. And then we get the Kellen Moore effect in this offense. Kellen Moore, he runs his offenses at an extremely fast pace. And why is that important? It's because it results in more total plays, which, of course, means more fantasy points scored by the offense overall. And through 2 weeks, that's already checking out. The Saints ran 69 plays in week 1, 71 plays in week 2. That creates more opportunities for everyone, which is especially good news for a guy hovering right around a 30% target share. I think what we've gotten from Chris Olave the first 2 weeks is his floor. There will be weeks where he scores touchdowns or breaks off a couple big plays and gives us wide receiver 1 production. Treat him like a high volume wide receiver 2 rest of the season. Now, my next buy is actually going to be a little bit more generalized. I'm telling you to buy rookie running backs. We go through this every season. Rookie running backs, don't get off to a hot start. Panic ensues. But by the end of the season, they're performing like league winners. We've gotten slow starts from Ashton Genty and Omarion Hampton, but the roles are there. They're their team's clear RB1. And then there's the guys who are still working towards a bigger role like Trevion Henderson and RJ Harvey. Henderson is being outplayed and outsnapped by Ramondre Stevenson right now, but his role will surely grow over the course of the season as he earns the trust of the coaching staff. He's an elite receiver out of the backfield with incredible explosiveness and open field elusiveness. He's going to get his opportunity to play a significant role in that backfield at some point. Buy low while you can, because all it's going to take is one explosive play for everyone to jump back on the bandwagon and for his price to go way back up. And for RJ Harvey, he's still playing behind J.K. Dobbins, but he saw a small snap share increase from week 1 to week 2. And I imagine his big playability will be too much to hold down for too long. Plus, we know it's only a matter of time before J.K. Dobbins gets dinged up. And at that point, it'll be wheels up for RJ Harvey. Buy him cheap now and have him stashed for when that time comes. And we also have the other guys who we expect to see increased roles later in the season that are worth getting cheap right now, like Bashal Tootin, Woody Marks, maybe even Jaden Blue. And I do want to note one more thing. We are not buying Quinshawn Judkins. He's got a crowded backfield, bad offense. He's not a pass catcher. And we're not buying Caleb Johnson either. Just the same thing. Plus, I imagine he's going to be in the doghouse for a little bit after Sunday's blunder on special teams. But I got a few bonus buys for you before we get to our sells. The first is going to be Terry McLaurin. We've seen this show before with wide receivers who held out during training camp and preseason. We saw CeeDee Lamb get off to a slow start last year. Same with Brandon Ayuk. And while I did expect some touchdown regression this year, Terry McLaurin, he's going to be just fine. Buy the dip on him. Then we got Drake London, 15 targets in week 1. He played at less than 100% in week 2 after suffering that shoulder injury in week 1. And this was a game where the Falcons offense didn't need to press. Drake London's a wide receiver 1. If you can get him for less, go get him. And then we got Kyle Pitts. The target share has been there in back-to-back weeks. I'm not saying it's actually happening, but it might actually be happening. Let's get to our sells for week 3. The first is going to be Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard currently sits as the RB7 in fantasy football. And don't get me wrong, I love Chuba Hubbard. I was touting him as a draft target this summer. But his snap share and his opportunity share, while still strong, are down from last year. He's gotten by on 2 receiving touchdowns in the first 2 weeks. He had 2 total receiving touchdowns in his first 4 seasons. It's been great to see his investment and his involvement in the passing game, and that will help him maintain the solid floor for fantasy purposes, especially with the Panthers likely trailing in most games. But he may not catch another touchdown all season. And in the run game, he's averaging less than 50 yards per game. He only has 26 carries. And now the Panthers just lost 2 starting interior offensive linemen with Austin Corbett and Robert Hunt going on IR this week. With the Panthers offense not taking the leap that I was expecting, Bryce Young still struggling. He kind of regressed a little bit, it looks like. It's hard to see Chuba Hubbard maintain this RB1 status. So I'm going to sell at that price if I can. I'm also going to sell Jacory Croskey-Merritt. While everybody else is jumping on the hype train, I am putting him on the trade block. I mean, the summer hype for JCM was huge. And now Austin Eckler is out for the season, which means we are going to get an increased role for Bill. But how much of an increase that's going to be, it still remains to be seen. See, the thing with Jacory Croskey-Merritt is he was a really fun and intriguing sleeper when he was going super late in drafts. But he's not the type of running back prospect who should get supercharged up rankings and just anointed the next breakout running back. He had a lot of holes in his prospect profile, most notably as a pass catcher. He caught just 7 total passes in 12 games at New Mexico. And he never caught more than 13 in a season in 4 years at Alabama State. And yet now he's expected to fill the Austin Eckler role? I don't think so. I don't think so. Eckler's injury will certainly mean more carries. I'll give you that. But I'm not expecting Jacory Croskey-Merritt to become a bell cow by any means. Jeremy McNichols will handle a lot of the passing down stuff with Eckler out. I mean, even with Eckler leaving early in week 2, Jacory Croskey-Merritt, he ran fewer routes than Jeremy McNichols. And without the receiving work, JCM is going to be almost touchdown dependent. Now, don't get me wrong. I think he'll be solid and usable in fantasy football, maybe even startable. But I just think the overall fantasy community is just overvaluing him and over projecting what his role is going to be. Look at it this way. If you weren't drafting Brian Robinson Jr. early in the summer before the trade stuff happened, then you probably shouldn't be getting yourself too hyped up about Jacory Croskey-Merritt. He'll be better than Robinson. He's more explosive for sure. But he's going to be a guy that's a little bit of a headache week to week, because if he's not scoring touchdowns, he's probably going to disappoint because he doesn't have that pass catching floor to save you. What I'm saying is Jacory Croskey-Merritt should be valued in that RB3, flex range, but I think you can trade him for RB2 value. So in that case, I'll take the profit and move on. And then finally, our last sell for week 3 is going to be James Conner. For years, James Conner has been the guy in the Cardinals backfield. But now he's looking like one of the guys in the Cardinals backfield. That's because through 2 weeks, Trey Benson has been eating into James Conner's workload. And it's really capping his ceiling. Through 2 games, Trey Benson has snap shares of 33% and 44%. He went over 30% one time in 2024. And he's capturing a significant chunk of the receiving work. In week 1, Trey Benson had a 26.6% route participation rate. That cranked all the way up to 61.5% in week 2. He ran 5 more routes than James Conner in week 2, and he saw 6 targets against Carolina. And Benson has looked good. He's looked really good. This is a young running back with 4.39 speed. He just has so much more juice than James Conner has at this point in his career. I'm not saying Trey Benson is going to take over the Cardinals' backfield, but the days of James Conner being a full-blown bell cow in that offense might be over. James Conner is still going to be usable, but his chances of giving you spike weeks are much lower than in past seasons, and the floor is going to be lower too if he continues to lose passing downs work to Trey Benson. Sell before your league mates realize it's over. But that's it. Those are the top buys and sells for week 3. Go ahead, drop your trade questions in the comments. I'll be happy to share my thoughts. And don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll be putting out content like this all season long. And if you want more from me, you can find my rankings, articles, resources, tools, so much more at yardsforfantasy.com. And make sure you check back here on Friday for the best plays for week 3.